Okay, great. So first of all, thank you, Kishore, for doing this webinar.
You're welcome.
Um, Kishore Rajgopal is the founder and CEO of NextOrbit. NextOrbit is a predictive analytics platform in the retail space. Hello, and I request again if everyone can go on mute so that there's as little interruption as possible. So again, like I was saying, Kishore is the founder CEO of NextOrbit, and we are happy to have him talk about retail, the challenges in retail today, as well as how we propose to use AI and ML in next generation platforms like NextOrbit, and specifically with the idea of having predictive power. Can you predict what the demand might be, and can you predict what kind of pricing power, pricing leverage you have, and so on and so forth? And those are kind of two of the critical questions in retail. Retail, as most of you know, is a I call it a 6% margin industry. So every percentage point and even 50 basis points sometimes has a big impact on the bottom line. Just to give you a brief background about Kishore, um, Kishore Rajgopal has, I've known him now for, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kishore, but for over 15 years. We were both at Infosys back then, the early days, and um, Kishore, again, has been in the retail space for the last couple of decades at least, working with some of the foremost clients of Infosys. And then, of course, our paths went in different ways, and then it converged again more recently. But again, one of the foremost practitioners, as I know, in retail. So the absolute right person to talk and address this subject. Um, and Kishore Rajgopal on this team also, on this call also has the rest of his team. So without much ado, I will hand it over to him. I just wanted to make a couple of mentions as well. So Arup Gupta is with us as well today. Arup Gupta is the former president of TCS North America, and if I'm not mistaken, has spent at least a couple of decades or more at TCS. Built out the entire North American US practice, if you will, from the very early days of TCS. Is largely responsible for where TCS is today. Also has been with other organizations as CEO, most notably Polaris and Birlasoft and such. And very, very, very happy, honored, privileged to have Arup as part of this session as well. We'll have him say a few words right after the initial introduction to retail to predictive analytics to NextOrbit by Kishore.
Thanks, Bala.
Sure, Arup. And a quick couple of sentences on Biz of IT. Biz of IT is, as I like to say, it's short for Business of Innovation. We have a platform that brings enterprises and startups and technology companies together on a platform. The core mission purpose, if you will, be to co-create, co-innovate, and we work across different verticals, different horizontals, different geographies. To date, we have over 32,000 companies on the platform that we've onboarded, and the idea is to again both mobile as well as web. On the mobile platform, it goes by Innovation HQ. On the web, it goes by bizofit.com. I request you to check it out. Without much ado, I will hand it over to Kishore to introduce the rest of his team and to give us, take us through what he has on this very interesting subject that we are all very keen to hear on. Kishore, over to you.
Thank you, Bala. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we had a worldwide audience. I am absolutely thrilled, honored to have such a nice audience to be able to come together, debate, understand. It's my commitment. This will be a knowledge sharing session. We share our experiences, best practices, and there will be concrete takeaways for every one of us here. That's my commitment. Let me start with an anecdote. In my 10 years of consulting experience in the US, very often retailers and brands used to come and say, how do I order? How much do I order? And how much do I order this week, the next month, the next quarter? I mean, these are all the guys who have the best of ERP systems. Yet, when it came to optimizing decisions, whether it's ordering, store ordering, whether it's merchandise planning, promotions, a lot of those are not entirely scientific. They're driven off Excel spreadsheets or some form of rule-based software. One more anecdote, we were speaking to a European company and they were really interested in optimizing decisions on store ordering. How much should go to each store every week in a way that maximizes their sales and you don't pile up inventory too much. So it's a delicate balance between overstock and out of stock. After some time, they were very interested, very engaged, and then they went quiet. And I called them, I said, what's going on? He said, we have one of the best ERP systems, and they told us that we take care of everything. And I said, that's great. If that's the case, go ahead. And 3 months later, they came back. They said, we have done the due diligence, and this ERP system does not do what we want done. The level of detail, SKU level forecast, by store, by week, minute price adjustments, they don't do it. And that's what opened to me. That gave me the inspiration to create NextOrbit. To me, the secret sauce clearly is AI and machine learning. With that little background, so we're going to go through major pain points that retailers and brands experience. We will touch upon the trends that enable a solution now. Why is now a right time as opposed to 1 year ago, 2 years ago? What's our mission? We're going to touch upon some of the solutions we've had for retailers and brands and any client experiences we're going to share. This is going to be a genuine sharing session. I have my team here right now. And so all of them are going to speak about what they have done, the consulting they've done, the code they've written, the optimizations they have done. So Srini, our co-founder, director of platform, Sudarshan, data scientist, especially on fashion and apparel. Vishnu, again, co-founder and engineer. We have Asrar on the line, data scientist, especially around demand forecasting, especially groceries. And Taruk, senior engineer, machine learning engineer. This is the team that's going to take us through. Let's look at the key problem statements here. Retailers and brands keep coming back and saying, how should I plan for demand? Because my current planning is at a very granular, at a very coarse level. I need it to be more granular. And if I don't get it that way, then I have to overstock or I have to suffer out of stock. How do I get this delicate balance between overstock and out of stock? How do I make sure I don't miss on demand? How do I plan for inventory across various lines? Let's say I have limited capital, buying budgets. How much should I buy of each product so as to maximize sales or maximize profits? But that's another good point, is many clients come to us and say, how do I maximize profits as opposed to sales? Those are two different goals. On the pricing side, again, we have many different questions people are asking. How do I mark down? In what cadence? How do I change it on a weekly or maybe more often in a way to maximize sales? If I mark down too much, I've left money on the table. If I mark down too little, it doesn't fly off my shelves. What's the right amount and how will it change week on week? My colleague here with me, he says customers buy attributes. They don't buy products, they buy attributes. They buy, jeans that are torn on the knees. They buy pinstriped. They buy a particular material. Can you find out what are the attributes or combination of attributes that matter? And most important is everybody is monitoring competition. That's not the important thing, but how do you respond to it? You don't have to reduce prices every time a competitor lowers their price. And you have to figure it out. So you need to avoid a race to the bottom. Otherwise, it's not good for anybody. And this is what this is what I started off with, is these are challenges that exist in spite of the best ERP systems. All of us here know the names of the ERP. So if you won't take the names, well, they give you solid processes, data models, good fulfillment systems, good compliance, good auditing, but optimization of decisions, not sure. That's where I think there is a big opportunity here. Why is AI machine learning a trend now? I mean, why was it not before, like say 3 years before? To me, cloud and cloud computing, storage and computing, which all of us know, no big deal, but the architecture to process so much data, so much decisions on a very inexpensively. I mean, if you had to do this, you would have to use Teradata 5 or 10 years ago. Super, super expensive. Now you use Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud, you get it done in a jiffy at a fraction of the cost. So much so, a lot of the optimizations we run them daily. We don't run them monthly or weekly. We run them daily. That's the extent of optimization we get. And open source, Python has powerful libraries that Asrar will speak about. Very powerful, and it's all free. I mean, the same thing a few years ago, you had to license expensive tools and spend a lot of money there. So that leads us to our mission is we set out of saying, let's apply the power of AI, machine learning, to improve effectiveness of decisions, to enable, we started off with mid-market. We're saying we can offer solutions to mid-market at an enterprise grade level at a much lower price point. And we know that if you optimize your decisions, your sales and profits go up. We've seen that from experience. Go ahead. Question? Okay, I continue. So there are a few platforms we've identified, and there are a few more on the anvil, but really it's demand forecasting. When I say demand forecasting, it's not the one that we all learned in college, wherein we would forecast it by the quarter. This is by SKU, by store, by day, by week, and it's refreshed every day. There's combinations involved. The other thing is pricing promotions. And the third one is discovery of what's going on in your competition. So why would we do all of that? My request is we all mute unless we have a question. So why are we doing all of this? There are credible improvement goals each one of us can take back to our organizations. We can improve same-store sales for brick and mortar stores. Store inventory goes down, DC inventory goes down. One of the most important things when you order right, when you good demand forecasting, your inventory turns go up, which means you sell more for the same inventory. Your basket sizes go up. Your returns from the store to the DC, that comes down. Full price sell-through, especially for fashion apparel, how much of it can you sell at full price? That goes up. And most important, you're able to run your planning, both central and the stores, with much fewer people. Yeah, there's a lot of success stories out there. I'm going to let you read it. But fact is that credible quantitative improvements you can make in the metrics that really matter to you. So we're going to now switch gears. I'm going to let Srini take us through some of the important areas in demand forecasting. Swiftly take us through some of the concepts and things here.
So when designing this state-of-the-art platform for a predictive system, there are a few key governing principles that we need to adhere to. So one is a closed-loop feedback system that we need to build. The second important governing principle is to have a combination of algorithms and metadata that keeps scaling up as we progress. The third thing, obviously, is to leverage cloud so that we can deliver it as part of the SAS model, which is a software as a services model. Now, the fundamental thing about the closed loop feedback system is that it should be machine learning based approach. And that means that for the demand forecasting system, it's understanding what are the key factors that play or that drive demand, which means studying the signals that are relevant for us. And these signals, the sources of these signals come from within the enterprise, which is like predominantly the point of sale data. It also comes from outside the system, which is about either the metadata or which comes about from different other sources, external data. Now, for this prediction to be actionable, we need to go down to the SKU level. It's not just enough if we do at a category level. It has to be blowing down to the store level, sometimes personalization level as well, and the SKU level definitely, which makes it all actionable. These are basically the signals that we study, that we study before we come up to the model. Now, the external factors that we were talking about, things like weather patterns, or things like a local ball game event, or Black Fridays, Thanksgiving days, Christmas sales, or just a tweet from a celebrity. So these are various parts of the social data as well as various events that take place in the neighborhood. And how is that affecting the sales is what the model comes up with. So why do we need this? These are the models that that the system learns by itself, and these are small signals, and they are all built up to form an ensemble model, which is about how do you optimize them given the situation in terms of how do you get these demands at the granular level.
Very nice. Thank you, Srini. Asrar, can you take us through some of the key concepts on price optimization? Asrar, over to you.
Yes, Kishore. So unlike traditional legacy price optimizations platforms, which are rule-based, AI ML-based platforms need to consider multiple factors that influence and are influenced by price optimization. We have to look at customer behavior, how customers respond to different price points. We have to understand product cannibalization that happens because of price optimization. If you offer discounts on one product, it will impact the other products as well. And once we understand these factors, we have to come up with an optimal price point for a given customer segment and a given product. Yes, Kishore. Next slide. So how do we come up with an optimal price point for a given customer and given product? We have to understand price elasticity. What do we mean by price elasticity? So we first try to understand how customers respond to different price points. If the price elasticity is high, it means it's an ideal product for reducing the price for competitive advantage. And if the price elasticity is low, it means it's an ideal product for increasing the price.
No, I am not audible.
Next slide, Kishore. Yes, so this particular slide summarizes what we mean by price optimization. So if I price my product too high, what it means is while I might get higher margins, the demand might decrease. Whereas if I price my product too low, while my demand might go up, the margins will be low. So the goal is to come up with an optimal price that will either maximize my revenue or profits. Over to you, Srini.
To sum it all, the price optimization is actually a series of steps. It follows a roadmap approach, and the basic thing starts with the foundational layer, which is about having the basic seasonality in place, the markdowns, the markups, and all of that in place. And then moving on, it's about how do you optimize it? How do you bundle? Like offers, for example, 1+1 as a free offer? How do we have the right optimized assortment mix? And moving on with all of these elasticity, cross price elasticity in place, how do we build the product cannibalization? And then moving on to the user personalization, which is all about what is the best promotions to be given to each person or to each segment of a customer. So that's where the roadmap approach. So there is a incremental benefit that we see from the business for when we go across each of these, so that there is not a big bang approach, but it actually works off a well orchestrated set of benefits that brings to the customer.
So I'm going to let Sudarshan speak about an engagement that we experienced. There are some counterintuitive actions were recommended. To me, it was surprising. We said on certain categories, it's okay to increase prices because of prices. I won't steal his thunder. Sudarshan, explain this experience to all of us, please.
Sure. The industry was an electronics industry, as well as they were doing fashions. The approach that we took when it came to price optimization was, before optimizing price, we wanted to understand what kind of attributes level, at an attribute level, what kind of behavior the product was exhibiting. Now, when talking about behavior is by giving discount, is the product's rate of sale, which is quantity to be sold, is it going to increase drastically or is it going to remain at the same pace? This is going to open up a new dimensional to us, saying the places where discounts is not going to incrementally increase your discount, we don't want to like flood up with more discounts, and we can rationalize our discounts to some other product where it's going to increase the rate of sale. Now, as a business, from a business point of view, we need to make sure every product is sold so that we clear off our inventory and we make profit out of everything. This quadrant clearly says that the x-axis is discount sensitivity, towards our right is the highly inelastic styles, which means the styles do not get affected because of discounts. Onto your left, it's of the reverse. The styles get affected because of the discount. Our y-axis is the rate of sale. The segment A, which is denoted as A with N circle, speaks that the products are inelastic, which means we need not give them more of discounts, but rather B are kind of products where markups or markdowns are necessary to move on. And the beauty is, on the A, we can do a markup. Say when it is in a kind of an industry where markups are allowed, we can experiment markups, trying to position the product in a slightly higher price, considering the product is inelastic and has potential to sell even on the current selling price over and above. Now let's talk about C. C is as well as inelastic style, but the organic demand of the product is not great because the features could be something else or the customer interest could be something else. These are the kind of products where we need to promote or bundle it with other kind of things and need an external push. And D are kind of products, despite giving discounts, the potential to sell is very meager. We need to promote, advertise, and there's a lot of heavy push needed there. So pricing is a different strategy for different kinds of products.
So what I'm going to do is, in a minute, hand it over to Vishnu. However, I want to summarize some of the learnings we've learned is, look, any organization, this is some change, and change is not comfortable. The biggest change is trusting the machine. If the machine is giving you a certain price or a certain demand, trust it, go for a pilot, a limited scope, maybe in one set of categories or one set of scores, see the results, fine tune it, and then roll across. Second guessing the machine won't help. For example, if the machine has said, this is the discount on this product, and you say, I'm not sure, I'm going to give it more discount. Won't work. I mean, that's going to destroy the purpose of the whole optimization. If you have more money for discounting, more budgets, feed it back into the optimization run. Let's pull it back and rerun the optimization. Anyway, we do it on a daily basis. And then we'll tell you what is the best set of prices, keeping in mind cross-elasticity, keeping in mind cannibalization to achieve your goals. And your goals could be more sales or more profits or some combination of the two. Most important is the foundation of data quality. You need to spend time making sure both transaction data and your master data is good. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. Vishnu, can you please talk about price monitoring?
All right. So demand forecasting, price optimization are intricately linked with what your competitors are doing. The price monitoring project mainly started off as something that is internal. It was mainly meant to understand competitor situation and understand how demand varies by competitor activity, right? So this, but what we noticed was there's a huge gap in the market when it comes to price monitoring. Because let's take a typical example here. In an e-commerce setup, you're listed a price, a final price, which may or may not have promotions. You're listed a final price, but you ask yourselves, is that the price you actually end up paying? You have various other drivers involved when it comes to the final price. It could be your shipping cost. It could also be additional taxes that are added upon the final listed price. So this is essentially what the customer ends up paying. And since most price monitoring platforms out there, what they just do is they just report the price and that's the end of it. That amount of customization is not something that is present per business. Now, the other problem that is that we encounter when we talk about generic price monitoring tools are different businesses might have different ways of categorizing a product. Now let's take an electronic situation. Now, if you want to categorize an Apple iPhone, some platforms, what they do is they disregard the color. Their argument is, okay, the color is the same. I mean, the color could be different, but the price is the same. How does it matter? So that amount of specificity is not there in existing in existing pieces, and that's where we put in price monitoring up to huge success. Now, implementing price monitoring is a challenge in itself. There are various factors that need to be considered. One obviously is to identify like products. Now you might have 100,000 products selling on your platform. Well, what do you do? Do you? I mean, I'm sure you don't want to really be the entity that is identifying similar products on competitor platforms. You might have 10 competitors. You might have 20 competitors. You might even be in a position where you do not know the number of competitors and you want to discover them, right? So identifying products is the first challenge, and what needs to be done here is you need to understand the attributes that are present across your competitor platform, attributes of your own product. These need to be matched using natural language understanding, and obviously some amount of manual oversight is needed as well for the edge cases. Now it's also really hard to find the real price, as I mentioned earlier. There are drivers that give you that real price. Now, a critical part of monitoring itself is IP whitelist, is IP blacklisting. Competitors don't want you to monitor their platform. It's important for you to. It's important for one to move around that roadblock as well. So these are the few attributes that can be used while identifying products. This can be done with resources that we have, open source resources that we have on natural language understanding. So I think that's that.
Thank you, Vishnu. We really need to mute. How do we? Okay, we've pretty much covered most of the material here. We have some case studies. Bala, what's your suggestion? Can we pause, take up questions, debate? What's your suggestion, Bala?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, so I think it's a good point during the webinar to reach out to Arup. Are you there? To kind of tee off with some thoughts, some questions. Arup, if you can hear me and if you can unmute yourself. Arup, are you there? I see Arup is there, but he's on mute. Okay. So Kishore, why don't you go ahead and talk about the NextOrbit platform? How does that specifically address all the problems?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with all my technical abilities, it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to unmute myself. Anyway, thanks, Bala. Sorry. All right. So, Kishore and the team, I think it's an excellent presentation. A lot of thinking, a lot of algorithms, and really impressive. And I sincerely mean that. Overall, basically, as all of us know, that the rate of technology innovation at this stage that is happening, I mean, it's phenomenal that we have seen compared to last few years. And that's what I think Kishore also alluded to, the growth that has happened in, the storage capacity, computing capacity, cloud, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, impressive what you guys have done. And today, for example, routinely we talk about making a commercial flight to the moon, setting up a what do you call it, the human colony on the moon. So it's literally left to the imagination as to where technology can go. And literally it is all being driven by AI, machine learning, and coupled with obviously predictive analytics and to some extent robotics. Not to some extent, a lot of it is to robotics. For example, in robotics, the type of things we are now seeing is robotics as a service and all of that. So now what Kishore and the team are trying to do here is basically a combination of using AI and machine learning and the predictive analytics, go through all the behaviors, patterns, which is very impressive. And most importantly, what is important is we have been hearing about these buzzwords, AI, the machine learning, predictive analytics, but it is the deployment that what basically makes it most impressive. How these technologies are really put to use, either in the B2B, like in your case, or B2C or whatever. And therefore, the solution that you are offering is really impressive and good. And that underlying technology, it is definitely going to be there for the next few years. And who knows what will happen. As I said, the rate at which the technology is growing and changing, I'm sure the team will keep track of that. But having said that, see, the points that you guys are addressing predominantly, as you mentioned, is the demand forecasting and price optimization. So it really depends, and there are a few external parameters and all that you are also using. External parameters like weather or even the competitive analysis, etc. So your prediction will really, the accuracy of the prediction will depend on how accurately you have been able to identify these external parameters or competitive environment, or even the internal parameters, because those also keep changing with time. And also the accuracy of the algorithms. Obviously, the algorithms will keep changing from your product to your competitors' products, etc. And hopefully you will keep on refining that. Then, of course, without getting into the details, hopefully you are basically within the retail industry, you are possibly addressing most of the other sub-industries, like the apparel, the electronics I heard about. I don't know about the food and groceries. So that also you need to keep in mind, and some of that will be possibly worth looking at. Lastly, but not the least, that today the most of the retail environment is being serviced by the aggregators like the Amazon, which is basically become all pervasive, where the price points, etc., are really not left to the individual product provider. It is more decided possibly by the aggregator itself. So how your product will really work in that environment is possibly something that you need to look at, because there are these Flipkart big sale, Amazon big sale, where the price point is possibly driven by completely different set of parameters. So some of those things I think I would possibly like to understand at a later point of time. But those are the initial thoughts that came to my mind while looking at the past 30 minutes or 20 minutes of presentation. That's all I had to say, Father.
Thank you so much. That is wonderful points made by you, Arup. The first point is absolutely on dot. the accuracy of data, the point of sale data, as well as local events, national events, zip code wise GDP growth, the local prom, which team is playing which team. Getting a good understanding of data is super critical to have good forecasts. So for example, if you did not know there's a local carnival, you're going to get a lot of forecasts wrong. So I think I violently agree with you. Quality of data and timeliness of data is very important, as important, in fact, sometimes more important than the algorithms. Second point you mentioned is, again, hats off to you. A lot of these have to be specialized by sub-vertical. In electronics, working with a leader, we clearly see the level of cannibalization, new product introduction. As soon as a new product is introduced, the demand and the prices for the older model steeply drops down. That's a it's a clearly defined behavior. Similarly, the fashion industry has a new fashion every 3 months. It has a different behavior. Grocery has a different behavior. More stable products have been around for 3 years, 4 years, a little bit more stable. So different set of, I agree, specializing it, and also having, one of the big things we do is to collect metadata, master data, attributes data for that country and for that sub-vertical. For example, groceries in America, we have a very good understanding of that space, and we have a lot of our own data that we bring to bear in doing a lot of the forecasting. And the third point you mentioned, what is the third point? Sorry? Yes. The aggregators. That's a very good point. So you're not just selling, it's not just retailers, but it's aggregators. And they have their own set of challenges, completely agree, and they need to be an offering. There needs to be algorithms for the aggregators. All good observations, Arup. Thank you, truly.
No, it's a great product. So some of these things, I'm sure you guys have addressed it, but maybe at some point of time, I would like to understand a little more. All right, Bala, so we go ahead with the next set of Q&As, Kishore. Just excellent product. Wish you the very best, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Arup. Thank you.
So I just want to make a quick point here. So Kishore, if you can put up your contact information there, and people may come and drop out and so on and so forth. I want to make sure that they have your contact information in case they want to reach out to you directly, whether it is just to understand more about any of the things you spoke about, or reach out to you specifically with how NextOrbit can help solve this problem, and so on and so forth. Great. So if you folks can take this down, that'll be very helpful. Secondly, I want to find out if anyone else has a question. If not, I have a question, and so I will ask the question, but go ahead. I want to give the audience an opportunity as well.
Yes, please. Yeah. Let's open the floor for questions.
I mean, like in the audience, anyone can also write the question in the group chat. So like everyone can see, and Kishore can respond.
So Kishore, I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. How many use cases probably we have done it till now? Probably you were supposed to touch, but anyways, you can tell us briefly in how many use cases you have done it, and what is how probably we have made it I hope it would be a SaaS driven model, but just want to understand a bit on that as well.
All wonderful questions, and leads into some of the slides we had as backup. Definitely it's a SaaS model. We pull in data. We're beginning work with a leader in groceries in Mexico. So each client typically shares the data either on their own S3 buckets or FTP, or they post it on our, on our data sources. So one is history, and second is daily data that we pull on a regular basis from customers. So it's definitely a SaaS model. Going back to how many use cases, at a high level, it will continue to be those 4 use cases: demand forecasting, pricing, competitor monitoring, and in terms of ordering, purchase order optimization. At a more detailed level, there are more minute use cases: cannibalization, promotion modeling, in terms of cross sensitivities, cross demand sensitivities, in terms of pricing by customer segment. So there are many micro level use cases, but at a high level, I would say those 4 use cases.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hi Kishore, Karan here.
Hi, Karan.
How are you doing?
Doing so well. Welcome, please.
Yeah.
Forward to your questions.
So I had a point, while the system seems to be like, very intelligent in the back end, the one of the challenges which will be there of integration with the POS and, simultaneously executing this, on the floor for the customer to see that the price optimization. So I hope you got it.
Yes.
In the sense, for example, the POS is very different, and on a daily basis, today when you work here, it is challenging for you to kind of change the prices on a daily basis because of various, process which has been derived by the retail formats as it is. There is a financial approval and who takes the call, whether you should give away that kind of thing. And while you are saying that we need to trust the machine, one point is that. So is there a bridge or an interface which in the future you would provide as a POS itself, where it can be dynamically priced? First is that. Second is that how do we kind of, communicate this to the customer? While
Sure.
I can have all this data, I know what actions to be taken, but the execution, it takes more time, even if we have to do it.
That's wonderful. I'm going to just let my colleagues who are working with clients in these situations, I'm going to hand it. Srini, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. See this, we had a situation with with an electronics retail where we went to a point, exactly the same questions we had in the beginning, but then as the project moved in, what the customer began to tell us is that, okay, your forecasts are great. Now, that is going to be my sales target. Now tell me how we are going to achieve that forecast. And so they began to plan their supply chain systems down the line, right? In terms of store fulfillment, in terms of training the store guys, in terms of having a detailed sessions with the sales, with their sales, to say that these are going to be your targets and then this is going to be what your achievement is. And that actually worked out well for them. Right, so it's like flipping the coin over in the matter of.
No, I'm getting that. See, this for this to be executed. See, one side is a very intelligent system, right? Yeah. Which we all know. The other side, which is the front end side, is largely a physical work.
Yeah.
So system that's the challenge. What I'm seeing it. I'm only asking, will there be interface? For example.
Yeah, there is.
Interface, when I say, see, today if I have to communicate a promotion in any store, I need to print up A4 print A4 standee or something like that, depending on the offer. What I could have, let's say set of products, where I will kind of define it should be at a 20% off basis, the system intelligence. Now that execution, which will be happening in one store, which will not be happening in one store, the challenges what a retailer will face, that, in a city like all stores, to run a uniform offer may not be necessary. But how is there any way the execution also be at the same speed is what I want to understand. I mean, are we working towards it? I know that, this is a far-fetched thing. First is the execution of, offers, which we need to kind of conduct it and, agree upon. And then, to show it to the customer. See, if I know the offer but I'm not able to communicate to the customer, then maybe 1 week later, the system will only learn, okay, because of the offer, I have not been able to sell. I might further discount it, right? That's what in real world happens. So how am I addressing that is what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so to answer from an operations and a tech perspective, what we do is, see, what you just specified is something that varies from client to client. And they have their own compliance, they have their own barriers to change. It could be purchase orders or it could be prices as well. So what we do on a per client basis is to integrate with their systems and provide our analytics in a way that is immediately consumable by them. So this back and forth happens normally in all of our client engagements, and we come to the same level. We come to a neutral ground to understand how they can consume our outputs or how they can consume what we give to them in the most effective way and in the most immediate way. So this is something that we do. What you just mentioned does make sense because we integrate with various ERP systems or task management systems that is specific to each client engagement, and we work with that.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, see, when the execution doesn't happen properly, then the system is learning the same thing. That the uh, the decision which was supposed to be taken, is not been executed. Hence, the next, recommendation would be to kind of further discount it. So I'm only saying, like, how do we capture that?
Okay.
Whether the execution was done, as per the system or not.
Yeah, I can give you an example of the same. We did one exercise for an Indian e-commerce fashion jewelry. So selling fashion in e-commerce is a very niche environment. Not a lot of players do. We recommended few promotions as well as pricing to them. But on first phase, it was not completely honored, saying like 30% of the styles were on our promotion strategy and rest were not. So what we did was we bifurcated going forward. The machine learning algorithm was not the same going forward post the experiment. Post the experiment, we started bifurcating it, saying these are the styles where our recommendations were played, and what are the other kinds of styles. So now the complete exercise of learning or training has become into two charters. One is with and without. And we started doing it in a stochastic way. Now by stochastic, each change that is happening right now, we learn from the changes and we make sure that learning those things hit higher precedence and weights in the future thing.
Okay.
We also offer them lead time, so we have enough time for them to make sure they incorporate our suggestions.
Correct.
Thank you.
So to summarize the response, Karan, see, if they don't execute recommendations, nothing really can be done, right?
No, that's true. See, my system, I'm only thinking from a system perspective, Kishore, because of course, if we don't capture that, where I don't have a POS, which is connected, I'm dependent on somebody else, then it will always be kind of questioned on my system's ability only, which is your system's ability.
Yeah, no, hear me out, Karan. My point is because we get daily data, we know whether they have executed or not. And if you have not executed, we go back to them and say, why has it not been executed? Is there an issue? Is there an operational problem? So we know whether it's executed or not executed. Accordingly, we adjust and fine tune for that. And we also communicate. For example, to one of our clients, we give a weekly operations recommendation saying, this is the promotions, this is the cadence, this is where it needs to be executed. And over few iterations, they've got used to it and they're executing on it flawlessly.
Yeah. So I'm only saying that, the execution in the POS is slightly different from a floor. So if POS is something which we will learn whether they've executed or not. So that captures, that of course, post that, we can always send out alerts that this has not been done. Effectively, it is not, helping you guys. Or maybe in the next day or two reading, it will again appear that, this is not, there is no movement on the thing. The whole thing was, Kishore, that, see, and since from my experience, I'm saying, usually they blame the planning that this has not worked and it is an error. Even though on the front end execution goes wrong, it is always a blame comes onto the system. So while the system is very intelligent, I wanted how do we kind of address that. That's all it is. That it's not the system which is at the fault. It is actually the execution at its fault. That's all it is.
Thank you, buddy. It's valuable points. They're just opening the floor to others for questions, please. It's 8:20 Indian Standard Time. We have another 10 minutes to go. So any more questions, any more clarifications, comments?
So, Kishore, let me ask a question.
Please.
So in this era of bundled offerings, right? So you combine a product along with service, along with support, along with insurance sometimes. I'll give you an example. So I went to buy a Samsung 10 phone, right? It's very hard to know what is the real price of a phone. And by the way, the retail price of that phone is about $900 or $950. And I think my effective cost actually worked out to, believe it or not, $300. And they have this buy one, get one free offer. Then they have, we'll give you a gift card offer. Then they have services, of course. I mean, they bundle it with your, 12-month, 24-month plans. And they bundle it up with insurance. All kinds of things. So how do you know the real transparent pricing of that product. They make it harder and harder. This is happening across goods. I'll give you a couple other examples. Whether it is a razor blade, someone came up with a subscription model saying, I'll send you replacements every month. It's happening in perfumes as well. They reduce the size of the bottle, but they also tell you can choose other brands and so on and so forth. So there are different innovative packagings, offerings, and so forth. How do you, when in this kind of an environment, how do you know what is the real pricing? How do you compare two products which are similar?
Yeah, so it goes at multiple levels. In the sense, we have that's the reason why we have the ItemMaster attributes. That is basically the product attributes as part of our data. And then we can cluster products based on that. We can cluster products based on the rate of sale and the price elasticity, and get to know of which combinations of products are the best suited for achieving our objective. Our objective could be maximizing profits or maximizing revenues or maximizing the rate of sale. And this is one of the viewpoints. The other viewpoints is in getting the competitive data. So likewise, we adopt a similar approach when we go and fetch information from the competition.
So a lot of discovery of competitive situation heavily relies on the attributes. We have a product master which will list out attributes for all of your products. It can be around 10 to 15 attributes. We take that into consideration and we essentially perform a one-to-one match to ensure that we have the right product. Now, in the case of bundles, I think that was brought up as well. In the case of bundles, what we do is we try to find the individual prices of each product that is bundled together, and we report that as well. So that is something that has to be done, because you cannot really consider an Apple iPhone X and an Apple iPhone X that is bundled with something as the same product, because there can be variations in terms of price. Another example is, even if you have the same product, let's take the Apple iPhone example for the sake of consistency. Even if you have the Apple iPhone X on your platform, a different competitor might sell the same product, but the price might be different because of attributes like warranty, shipping price, and things like that. And these are things that must be taken into account as well. And that is done using the ItemMaster.
Okay. We also do one more thing.
Hi guys, this is Prasad. I have a quick question. You said you have a list of all the product masters. So is it something that you have captured across the line from multiple retail points, and you have it in your cloud, or is it something that you have to do it for each and every client separately?
So the situation largely depends on the client. Some clients give us extensive item masters because they've maintained very good item catalogs.
No, my question is very straightforward. Do you have that entire catalog with you that you have already scrapped and maintaining?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So regardless of the product portfolio?
Yes, we do.
And across all categories and departments, is that what you have?
We've been doing a lot of work on electronics and fashion apparel and groceries as well. We plan on starting work on luxury furniture soon as well.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so those are the categories that you have. Okay.
More questions, guys? This is super exciting.
Sure, definitely. I think you guys have done a commendable job. All the best.
Yeah. So looking for any more questions, guys? So commenting on the ItemMaster question that was just asked by Prasad is, it's super critical to do any kind of modeling at a category level, cannibalization modeling. A lot of modeling depends on the ItemMaster accuracy. We discovered that pretty early in the game. We decided we have to have our own solid ItemMaster by country and by industry vertical. We've begun the task, and in many cases we have completed. So we know when that kind of client, for example, groceries, America, when they come to us, we say, don't worry, UPC wise, we have a lot of attributes already collected. We'll take care of it.
Fair enough. No, So like just as a brief background, I've been 12 years with Walmart. Like I used to manage their entire decision support systems, and I left them in 2006. So I understand the paradigm that you're trying to understand and address. So I really think like that's a very long and exhaustive uh, list of master that you're trying to create.
So we are going one level higher to it. Just with ItemMaster, most of the information is like buried. So what we do is we go at an ingredient level as well as the attribute level, trying to combine products. Because today a lot of people are going vegan only. They're saying no peanuts. These kinds of new cases are turning up. So we are trying to address even that.
Very good, very good. And
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Prasad.
So, well, one of the things is like I'm completely out of the product and positioning. Like I have a platform that like internally that like we have launched, and like which actually does what was couple of the guys asked for use case, and what we do is like we do dynamic packaging and dynamic pricing in real time using over 60 to 70 AI bots that actually does that in real time. So as you're asking the question, the application of it, we are already using it for the last year and a half and 2 years, and I'm just like using it for my company because we
Prasad,
don't
which
sell.
company is that for our benefit?
So, it is called homelot.com. It is a omni-channel e-commerce platform, and then like I said, like I was one of the core teams that launched the first online travel platform, Orbitz.com, which basically address the dynamic packaging and pricing for what you call is online travel, like basically combining your airline with hotel and then as well as with your car rentals. So now we are trying to address the same thing, very similar lines, but like in a kind of a different way of approach to what the NextOrbit team is trying to do. But like I'm trying to do that in real time for over 100,000 products, where we combine dynamically all the products into multiple packages and pricing all of them in real time. So that's
Very
what it does.
impressive, Prasad. Very impressive.
And that's what it does. And then like this has been in works for the last 4 years now. And then the last year we launched the platform.
We should definitely talk offline. Very impressive. I'd like to learn more from you.
Fantastic. So,
and there are multiple companies that do that. Like to give you an example, jet.com does that, which actually does the dynamic pricing. And then also like, and they address that bit differently than how we do. And we analyze over 170 attributes in real time. Like you guys like are looking at like attribute and data collection is very important. And then like we are trying to address that in the most difficult market segment, which is India. But like we have chosen only one particular aspects of like how we identified is like long shelf life products is what we are trying to address. So it is near, and then like there are a lot of application use cases. So I really like the way that you guys have trying to address that for several clients of yours.
Thank you, Prasad.
Oh, fantastic. So I think we've come up at the top of the hour. So Kishore, thank you very, very, very much. That was insightful. I think the questions were very, very interesting as well. So thank you again for that. Thank you, Arup, for your thoughts. Kishore, before you wrap up, and do you have any final thoughts? I'll give you the final word, and thank you all for attending.
Yeah, the final word is I think every one of us in our businesses should keenly look at how open source machine learning combined with computing power and external data can impact our decisioning and our outcomes. I think that's a simple closing statement. Thank you so much, Bala, for getting us this wonderful webinar.
Thank you, guys. And again, you have Kishore's contact details on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me. I am available at bala@bizofit.com in case you're interested. Kishore's contact details are there. Devendra, again, some of you have his contact details. Reach out to him as well. And thank you again for attending. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore. All the best.
Thank you, Kishore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore.
Thank you.